Hello, welcome.
Hello.
As we are, Bezat Hashem, we are winding down Torah Chav Gimel, and basically we talked about the people that are steeped in greed, and the tava for money, are connected to depression, marshchero, apil chashuchim, and as opposed to somebody who has a clear and open emuna that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can sustain him with a minimal effort, just something easy. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can give you parnasa, no problem. And Rabbeinu said more than that, that parnasa and chasing parnasa shortens a person's life. As we know, stress does that. Stress leads to inflammation, all kinds of, health risks and damages. And everyone also says that what we finished here is about the snake. The snake is the root of evil. When the snake was cursed, and sand, you will eat all the days of your life. So at Afar, the sand is Afar Zav. This is Mammon. The Afar Zavla. This is where, Afar is the source, ultimately, of all wealth. It says, Va'afa tochal kol yomei chayecha, and sand you will eat all the days of your life. Rabbeinu uses it to mean that the offer, which is the money, tochal, it will eat kol yomei chayecha, all the days of your life. It shortens a person's life. And it said, tikunim offer yukav yovesh, that offer, that sand is cold and dry, and that chol is kav, the spleen is cold and dry comparatively to other organs of the body. And depression comes from the spleen. Spiritually, it comes from the spleen. Kar v'yovesh means cold and dry, means there's no life in it. There's no. And this is what it says in the Tikkunim. Begin da, because of that, and said, you'll eat all the days of your life. In other words, when a person falls into greed, he is connecting with the snake. That is the malchus, the klipa. That is the sand. That is depression. That eats all the days of his life. And then, this is what we said, that matzah, moitza, says, are you connecting to the tzaddik, or are you connecting to tavas moment? Because the only thing that can fix a person from tavas moment is shmir sabris, is connecting to the tzaddik. And Reb Nosson says as follows: Ayen sham b'tikunim, look there in the Tikkunim, Tikkun Gimel, Tikkun Izar, v'tireni flois, and you will see wonders. Echata, shepatach Rabbeinu zichron levarocha saninu, Rabbeinu opened up our eyes, v'gilo lanu hakdomos, achadoshos, aniflos, and verim la'el v'torezos, and he revealed to us this basic hakdomas, this understandings and knowledge that are we learned in this term. He says now the words of the tikkunim are very, very clear according to Rabbeinu. It says go there, learn it, and you will become wise. And he says go over there and look in Tikkun Ein, the Tikkun 70, Moshe Kosov Sham. Im Zocha Ezer, this is about the wife. This is es lo tov heyoisa odom levado. It's not good for a person to be alone. Eselo Ezer kenegdoi. I will give him an assist. I will make him an assist against him. Kenegdoi. Give him a wife who will assist, that will oppose him and will be an Ezer to him. So, said Tikkun Ezer says, Im Zocho, if a person is a tzaddik in Nishama is Ezer, then he is connected to the Shechina at all time, and it helps him to be rescued from Tavas Maran. V'im love, if a person is never not zeicha to Shmir Sabris, is connected, and a person is connected, Machos Yitra Achra, that is connected, is against him, and it pushes him into greed. And this is what the Kohen says, that I find the woman more bitter than death. The thing which is bitter, says Tikkunim dat chol, that's the spleen. And Shabsai, that's Uranus in the stars. Malchus the Klipa, that's the star Uranus, and this is Bevchinas Atzvus Marashchora, the planet Uranus. This is Atzvus Marashchora, this is depression, Marashchora, that has its parallel manifestations in the body. It is the Tchol, it's the spleen, and the Shabtai is Uranus, the planet. Ptaya Ukma, it's like black ceramic pail. And so these are all the different kind of manifestations of the same Indian, and upon which it is said, Matzah Isha, Matzah Tov Yofek Ratzon Hashem. If a person found a woman, then his Matzah Tov, he found good, Yofek Ratzon Hashem, and he will gain whatever it is that he wants from Hashem Yisbarach. And begin that, this is why the Bala Mishnah, Mat Nisan, says the Tikkunim said, Matzah or Moitza. This is what we said last week. When a person would get married, they would ask her afterwards, so how is your wife? Matzah or Moitza? This is what is Matzah. The Pasuk says, Matzah Isha, Matzah Tov. You found a woman, if we're saying it in past tense. It says Matzah Tov. Then we're talking about, a person that has found good. And if a person is Moitza, he says, there's another pasuk in Koheles Moitze and Yisa'isha Mami Mames, I find the woman more bitter than death. Shemirachem. So we explained that it's not someone that telling him, like finding, making him feel bad, right after he gets married. He got married, he says, no, you got a good wife or a bad one. I mean, that's not the kind of conversation that one should have. But actually, what they would tell him is whether the wife is matzah or moitza is really up to you. If you are treating her bekoved and you're honoring her, then it'll be matzah. It'll be good. She'll be happy. And if chas v'chalila you will be, stingy and egotistical, then you're really going to get it. Moitza and Isaisha. So matzah moitza, is it this or is it that? He says this is what they say. Matzah moitza, and look in that Tikkun deep, and you'll see that Rabbeinu is saying there in Tikkun Gimel, completely. And now we are going to explain this entire Mamar as it pertains to the Mamar Chazal, Koshim Mizanoisov Shel Odom Kiflaim Keyoledo, that the parnas of a person is twice as difficult as a woman giving birth. And what we'll understand is that giving birth to money, as it were, that moment of Kedusha, money of Kedusha, that's the only thing that's called moment, but any kind of money that doesn't come with Kedusha, it comes through Taivas moment, it comes through greed, it doesn't last, it doesn't have any kiyum. It doesn't mean anything, there's no pleasure from it. Rabbi Nosson says as follows: that Torah is the language of Rabbeinu Zichrono by himself, and then I wrote from there. It's my own language. The things that I heard from him that were not explicit in the Torah, and there's a lot to talk about it. What I heard and understood from his own holy mouth. What I was able to understand when I heard this Gewaldige Torah from the Rebbe's holy mouth. And this is what it says. It says in Os Aleph, Koshim Zenoisov Kiflaim Kemeleido, the parnas of a person is twice as hard as a woman giving birth. What's the reason? Because a woman that gives birth, she cries out 70 voices before she gives birth. And these 70 voices are all included in whatever cries she's crying out. But here in Taivas Momen, there's 140 voices. That the Shechina is bemoaning those who fall into greed. It says because even, before we explain in depth that also in money there is an union of giving birth. At the very beginning of the Torah, the whole exchange with Saladabei Atuna, when they said, tell us words of falsehood, and he said we had a mule that gave birth. And this is since when can a mule give birth? So we see this union of mammon, of money, has to do with the union of giving birth. And he says as follows: because a person has to go through and be tested through this type of money before you achieve doing business faithfully. And this is quite easy to understand, because if there's no Taivas moment, what's the big deal of dealing fairly? It's the most natural tendency, why not? But so there has to be a time before. Before you earn and you give birth to Mammon in holiness. A person needs to overcome, to really fortify himself when he is dealing in business. That he should not fall into Taivas Mammon at all. His masah should be in truth and in total emunah. A person should break away and shut out all the thoughts and confusions in Taivas of Mammon. Nobody's going to know what price should I take. I give him this price. Then he agreed to it. I should have asked for twice as much. And all these kind of thoughts to come. So what should you think about? The entire kavanah should be to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu alone. What does it mean? So you'll be able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the money that you'll earn. You can tzedakah, lachzik lem the Torah, v'avid Hashem. Your money, give tzedakah to people who learn Torah and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. בשביל זה קשים מזונויסו של אדם כפליים כאלוהיו. This is why the sustenance of a person is twice as difficult as a woman giving birth. Because the woman is giving birth has to suffer, go through, birthing pains. She has to call out 70 voices if she gives birth. There's 140. The Shechina is crying out, Chas v'Sholom, Kalani Mizroi, my head is heavy. Kalani Mizroi, my arm is heavy. On those that fall into Tavis Moment. And before you earn money, you have to go through that particular test. These are 140 voices of Tavis Moment. And to cry and to daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to go through them in peace, and to come safe and sound of the other side and be saved from them. That's why the parnos of a person is twice as difficult as a woman giving birth, because over there 70 voices, here 140 voices, and you should understand. And Rabbeinu explains that 140 shakam, the kuf mem voices, are twice ein. These are 2 times the 70 voices when a woman is giving birth. I know kaloni miroishi, kaloni mizroi. My head is heavy and my arm is heavy. These are 2 kinds of voices from my head and from my arm. And every voice is the 70 voices of the Oledes. And here, they're double. Kalani miroishi, kalani mizroi. Kalani is lashon kol. You have a call for the thought and call for the deed. We can explain this in the sense that you have to fight greed on 2 levels. First of all, the level of thought. That when you're thinking about business, you're thinking to do this, your kavanah already should be to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with it. Give tzedakah, pay debts, raise your children, to Torah, mitzvahs, and give money to people who learn Torah, and Oivdei Hashem. That's what you need to do. And that's on the thought level. So you have to cry out 70 voices just when you come to the thought, they're coming with a deal. So what's the deal? How I'm going to do this, how I'm going to, swindle this way, swindle that way, or maybe get more this way, more that way, and so forth and so on. That's one stage, the head. It's my head is heavy. You have to scream 70 voices to be saved from thoughts of greed. And then, of course, comes the actually doing of the business. If there's a job that you need to do or whatever it is, you should do it and not succumb to temptations of taking shortcuts on somebody else's account. And make sure that you do what you agreed to do, and so you'll get paid for what you were paid to do. So here's 70 voices that you have to cry out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to save you after the agreement was reached, that you shouldn't bum out and become lazy and cheat your friend or business partner from that which is coming to him. And Rabbeinu says, Ki be'emes kol harevach, all the profit the person does in business, mechone b'shem leida, is called a birth. V'chol ha'moma v'chol ha'ashpoes, and all the money and all the bounty, nimshochim rak mishviras tavis moment, they only come, mamas the kedusha, we're talking about only in holiness, we're not talking about, wealth that comes from balagan. They all come from that breakage of Tavis Moment. Because the breaking Tavis one, that's emes. This is the Bechina of emes. Because, Masawatan Be'emuna means that the Bechinas emes. You are glued and connected to or upon him, to the face of the light of the face of Kodesh Baruch Hu, which is emes. Zeh Bechinas, as Chazal said, why does the sheker, all the letters of sheker are standing on one foot? Shin, Kuf, and Reish. The Shin is standing on a spitz, the Kuf is standing on a spitz, and the Reish is standing on a spitz. It says because Chazal said, why does all the letters of sheker, Shin, Kuf, Reish, are all standing on a pointy foot? And the word emes, the aleph and the mem and the taf, all have, wide legs or bottoms to stand on the steady. They're not, standing like shin, kuf, and reish. It says kush takai because the emes lasts. The emes exists. Chazal said, I say kum asher b'ragleim, all the steadiness under their legs, talking about Yakum, this is actually talking about Korach and his people. Rashi says, Zema moina shel Adam, that is a person's wealth, Shema Midal Raglov, that puts him on his feet. If the money is acquired in a kosher manner, then it puts him on Kemama Panos, in other words, the money of a person that puts him on his feet. Well, the emes is through truth. That is the breaking. It's the opposite of what people think that you would get money. That is the bechina that the emes lasts. It's steady. I know the emes. It is through emes. If a person is dealing with emes, you'll have money. He'll have everything. He has money. There's a bechina samida. He's standing. He's steady. Shemamid al raglov. But the lie is unstable. The lie falls down. Kasheker avodah zara, the lie is avodah zara. Taibas moment, as Chazal said, anybody who changes, who says one thing and then changes, says, I didn't mean that, or I didn't mean that, and it's kilo ovid avodah zara, as if he's serving, idolatry. He's committing adultery. Again, it is sheker when a person is also in sheker chas v'chalila, which is avodah zarah, which is tavis moment. He doesn't have any kiyum and mama. He doesn't have any stability, and it does not last. In other words, the fact he doesn't have a moment, doesn't have a yikum, it doesn't have a steady stand, as it say. And the shikra lokai, the lie cannot stand, cannot last. Avodah Zarah is called in the Zohar El Acher Istaretz V'lo Avid Perim. A foreign god, a false god, is castrated and it does not bear fruit. That's the biggest mistake. The whole Torah is based upon that he's telling them that this falsehood, the biggest falsehood, the source of all falsehood is this idea that if you covet money, it will last, it'll give you happiness, it'll give you what you're looking for. It's exactly the opposite. There's nothing comes out of it. As it says in this manner. Ki al pirov, mostly those who run after money the most, usually, most times they die in great debt, and they don't have anything. Even if they don't die, with debts, while they're alive, they owe money to their own tithe. I have to get more money. That's not enough. I have to get more than twice as much as I had before. They want for a lot. They want a lot of money. They're running after it. They're putting a tremendous amount of effort into it. All their lives with tremendous. I mean, it's like they're putting like hours upon hours upon hours. My son told me about a certain person that that he knows he met whatever in America, that person, he meets him where in the Turkish bath. The Turkish bath is open for frum people. That this guy comes and he spends, I think, half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. This guy is a multi-billionaire, and the people that work for him are millionaires themselves. And the driver of this guy told my son, you see this half an hour, talking about somebody who's kiviyachol shomer Torah mitzvahs. He says that he has a business. I don't know what the business is. Some kind of buying and selling. I'm not sure what it is. That it is open up to about an hour before Shabbos, and it starts an hour after Shabbos goes out. And he's working all week. And this half an hour, 3/4 of an hour that he spends in the Turkish bath, that's the time he takes for himself to rest, to take off work. There's a very famous goy, has a lot of money. He says his timetable is broken down to 5 minutes increments. He's working 150 hours a week. And they put themselves in tremendous dangers, everything to be mal their taiva, as if they had a tremendous debt to pay. That's why all their days, all their years cannot be enough to pay off this debt of the avodah zarah, because a person cannot die having already achieved half of what his taiva is. So we find that it's not even his money, because he doesn't enjoy his money at all. Because a false god, is a eunuch. It does not give fruit. And it is not possible to give birth to Zoinus and earn money that is called money. Now, as Mom de Kedusha, the person should be happy. Should be happy with your lot, happy with what you have. That's the mainstay of a share. That means that to be rich means that you're happy with what you have. As Chazal said, who is rich? The one who is happy with his lot, right? And the only way to do it is by breaking the greed. Is staying away from greed. And the only way to do that is through Shmiras Sabris and crying out to Kadosh Baruch Hu that at the thought level I should not transgress the Tavis Mammon, and obviously in the deed, when it comes down to deed. This is Midashpa. That's why they pronounce a person is twice as hard as a woman giving birth, because you have to break down, you come out and call out 140 voices. That's the only way that you can actually give birth to Mama Mekdusha, because the main shefa comes from Emes. It's breaking the Tavis Mammon. And now you can understand this entire Mama put together. Before B'ezrat Hashem next week we will wrap this Torah up, but I just want to digress a little bit because we're talking about Shmiras Sabris. Baruch Hashem, yesterday we had the opportunity to have a bris milah to my youngest grandson. His name is Israel Chaim, and it is during that during the bris. I mean, after the bris, during the Suda, my son's partner told the following Maisa. They shut down everybody, and he shut down everybody. He says, listen to this Maisa that I'm telling you. And he said, what happened was, he said, my son went through an accident 8 years ago. He was hit by a bus, and it took a long time until he got over it, whatever. And his youngest daughter today is 8 years old. In other words, he didn't have any children after that. And Baruch Hashem, he got up, he Baruch Hashem, he's okay. And he and his wife wanted to have more children. So when they were in America, they visited the town of Monsey. And the town of Monsey, this is where the gravesite of a very holy Jew called the Ribnitzer Rebbe. He was a very famous Rebbe from Russia. We were very close to Reb Mendel Putefas from Chabad. We spoke about him a great deal. I'll tell you that story also. So there are a lot of people coming there. He's very famous as Baal Moifes. And so my son went to daven by his graveside, so, he should have another child. And when he was there, so his partner went up to daven there, so my son said to him, come on, do your thing. We got work to do. We have to collect money. They're paying for people's chasanas to help people marry off their children. We got work to do. So while they got into the car, as they got into the car, my son gets a phone call from his daughter in Israel. A year ago, that was a year ago. He gets a phone call from his daughter, and she says that his son, my other grandson, was riding his bike, and he fell down, and he broke a couple of bones. That the Hatzalah came, they took him in the ambulance in the hospital, and his mother was, she's in business, whatever it is, so she was in a meeting. So his sister took him, went with the ambulance together with him to the hospital to take care of him. And they called his mother, and so the mother should go to the hospital too. Obviously, my son, he's here by the Tzion Ribnitzer. Immediately he went back to the Tzion, and he davened, so his son should be well. And after that, he comes back to the car. Comes to the car together with his partner, and the guy, the Gabbai of the Tzion, of the Ribnitzer, he's the brother of Flipa Schmelzer, the singer. His brother Zisha Schmelzer. He's the Gabbai over there. He knocks on the window of their car, so the lowered window. So he gives them a disc with the stories of the Moifsim and the miracles that the Ribnitzer Rebbe performed. And then, so they each gave him some money, and he turns to my son, out of the blue, and tells him as follows: listen, within a year, you're going to have a male boy. And now I want to tell you a vort of the Ribnitzer Rebbe. And he said as follows. It says, V'rapo yerape. The Gemara says, Erapo yerape, talking about refuah. From here, the Gemara says, we know that a doctor has a reshus to heal people. Because otherwise, without a specific reshus, what do you mean? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is B'rapa Cholim. What is the doctor doing here? V'rapo yerape, let him heal. Let him. So V'rapo yerape, that's the doctor. The doctor is allowed to heal. On the other side, he says, Hashem is Roifei Cholim. Anochi Hashem Rofecha, I'm Hashem, I'm the one who healed you. So the difference in the spelling is V'rapo yerape, that the refuah says the pei has an exclamation in it. Rapo yerape. And Hashem Rofecha, the fei doesn't have an exclamation mark in it. Rofecha, not Ropecha, but Rofecha. So the Rebbe says, why is that? He says, because when a doctor heals a person, always leave something undone. There's a dot that's left there. Something is not done. But when a Kodesh Baruch Hu heals, he heals completely. He gives complete refuah. It's 100% refuah. Obviously, my son and his father, but they both knew about, what his son was going on in Israel at that particular time, and that my son came there to daven for to have children. So my son was so excited, he wanted to call his wife. And before he managed to call his wife, he gets a phone call from his wife from Eretz Yisrael. And his wife was very upset. What she's upset about? She went to the hospital. She left the meeting, and she went to the hospital, and they did whatever it is they did, whatever scans they did, and there's nothing wrong with the kid. No broken bones, no nothing. There's nothing wrong there. So what did they disturb me from the meeting for? What is this? And the day of the bris was yesterday, is exactly a year from when he told my son, this year you're going to have a son, a baby boy. After 8 years, of 7 years of trying and obviously not succeeding. So while we're dealing with that, I want to tell you who this Ribnitzer Rebbe was. I mean, he's all, during our lifetime. And Mendel Putefas, who is a very famous Lubavitcher Chassid in Russia, is a big Moisa Nefesh during the communists, unbelievable. And this is a story that he told about the Ribnitzer. And you know that in Chabad they don't often tell stories about other Rebbes. And he told this story in front of hundreds of people. And he said that there is a person in our days who is Mechayim Mason, who revives the dead. And he told him the following story. Mendel Putefas was arranging brisin in Russia, in the communist Russia, Soviet Union. It was, a life danger. And the Ribnitzer, his inyan was mikvahs. He was toiveling all the time in mikvahs, is making mikvahs, and that was his inyan. So one day, a police officer, a Jewish police officer, his wife gave birth to a son, and his wife wanted the child to be malad, have a bris. Husband wasn't happy about it, communist, whatever, but his wife insisted, beseder, so they're going to have a bris. Mendel Putefas, he arranged the bris, and he called the Ribnitzer to perform the bris. And this is what they did. And this is the story that he tells. It happened by him. He was in front of his eyes. He says after the bris, the child was bleeding profusely, and the bleeding would not stop. And the bleed, he was the sandik. The baby was on him, and it continued until the baby died. Pashut. So Mendel Putefas says, what are we going to do? How are we going to tell this police officer that was against the whole idea of making a bris that his son died during bris milah? So Mendel Putefas said, the Ribnitzer said, give him the baby. Gave the baby, and he wrapped him in his talus, and he mentioned to him, go out of the room. And he said, the Mendel Putefas, he went out of the room, and after a while he called him back. He came back, and he says, here's the child, and the child was alive. He says, I saw Tchias HaMesim with my own eyes. With my own eyes, I saw it. And this comes from the sanctity of a Jew. You serve a Kodesh Baruch Hu, this is what you can reach. He was going to the mikveh, I don't know, like 10 times a day, whatever it is. And the police in Russia, they arrested him. And he told him that he wanted to go to the river, to the Dnieper. He wanted to go to it was winter. And this is, you want to go to the Dnieper, something, go ahead, go. So sure enough, he went to the river, took off his clothes, broke the ice, dunked a few times, and they were watching the whole thing with binoculars. They saw him doing. He says, he's just a madman. Just leave him alone. Forget about him. Don't arrest him. Mendel Putefas, Zichron Levracha, and the Ribnitzer Rebbe, Schusim again, all of them, just did not give any credence to the Soviet authorities that had any rights to call tell the Jews what to do. None whatsoever. This was the Friedrich Lubavitcher Rebbe, led this movement in Rebbe, was, obviously just a very holy Jew. And just finished with one little story that when my son's partner told this story to some people in Tzfas, he lives in Tzfas, whatever it is, and some people for months were there. And he told them that story. So one of them told him, says, let me tell you, I don't know if he tells it about himself or somebody else. And he said to him that a bocher, either him or somebody else, went to the Rebnitzer. And the Rebnitzer looks at him and says, what do I know you from? Where have we met before? The bocher says, I have absolutely no idea. I've never seen the Rebbe before. A young bocher is not came to America with his son. So he says, think. I mean, where? So he says, I don't know, it may sound weird. He says, but I was once by Kever Shimon HaTzadik. And I wanted to say some Tillim. And they didn't have any Tillim except Tikkun HaKloli. So they said, okay, it's a Tikkun HaKloli. So when I open it up, it says over there, Reni Mekasher Atzmi, I'm connecting myself to all the true tzaddikim in our generation, and all the true tzaddikim previous generation, especially to Rabbeinu HaKodesh, Rabbi Nachum ben Feges, Chusi Yagen Aleinu. And he said, I don't want to say Nachum Feges, I'm not a Breslover. So who should I connect myself to? He says, I connect myself to the Rebnitzer Rebbe. So the Rebbe says, that's where I remember you from. He wasn't that strong, the Rebbe was in America. He was Mekasher himself to him. He was saying, Tikkun HaKloli by Shimon HaTzadik. He says, yeah, that's where I remember you from. So, there are such Jews in the world. There are such Jews in the world. When you are Moisei Nefesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for us, it's just a matter of thought and hands. Kalali Miroishi, Kalali Mizroi. Clear up our thoughts, clear out our hands. And we'll be fine. But we should know that when you serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with everything you got, you become something else. The Rebbeinu says, an El Chiyud looks to other people like he's just a normal human being, but he's a whole different matter. Schusam Yagen Aleinu Val Kol Yisrael Amen. It was the Yortzeit of Yeshua Ben Nun. It was the Yortzeit of the Divrei Chaim from Tzanz, the famous Divrei Chaim, and Chavav Kislev. I wish all of you, B'ezrat Hashem, Kol Tuv.